So now we will see this food safety and food safety systems in a little more detail, as we earlier discussed something about this as well. If you talk about this food industry historically, they have been using food safety systems on the basis of testing of the final product. Um, and then it has been a regular practice, but after 1980s, this change and a new system came into the practice, which is called as HACCP. As I earlier said, it stands for Hazard Analysis at Critical Control Point, whereas before that it was Good Manufacturing Practices or GMP system that was followed. But again, the emphasis was more on testing of the final product, whether they are suitable to go into market or not. But then the HACCP system came into force to actually look into more food safety issues, because at this stage we were more aware about food safety issues. There were stringent government regulations on food safety issues. The number of food safety incidences has also increased as well. So that mandated that food industry should go for a more specific system, food safety system. So HACCP was adopted. So this is, as I said, that historically organization have been testing their final product, but after HACCP, this is a different approach that has been adopted, because this would take care. This is a more preventive measure. So we would prevent the food safety incidences being happening right from the start, say from farm to fork approach. So this involves every aspect before production, even, and during production as well. But before that, the approach was to test only final product. That does not make sure that you get the safer product at the end. So GMPs, they were previously used before HACCP systems were there, but they also act now as a prerequisite program for making HACCP system implemented in any organization. So if the organization is not mandatory to have this HACCP system for every organization, but if they want to go for it, they still have to maintain this GMP system, because that would lay the foundation for making this HACCP system applicable in an organization. If we talk about food laws and regulations, there's a slight difference. The legal requirements that would protect the consumer from any food safety related incidences, or making it more fit. They are again different from one country to another country. It is dependent upon every country that what kind of laws or regulation they formulate. Uh, so every country would have their own specific set of regulations or set of laws. So as I said that if you talk about the federal laws in US and Canada, the federal laws or national laws are basically broader statement. They are based upon uh, some principles or government policies regarding adulteration or misbranding of food, whereas the food regulations, they are more in detail, and they are actually they are the rules that enforce the government policies. As I earlier said, that the laws, they are the broader policy statements by the government, and the regulations, they take into account that they enforce these standards, and they make their own detailed standards about enforcement of these principles into the industry or industry-wide applications. The food laws and regulation, they are applicable to domestic products as well as to the imported food products as well. So again, it is also a law that the food, it cannot be imported to a country unless it complies with the law of the manufacturing country. So it's not possible that a country does not meet its own regulatory requirement and start exporting those food products to other countries. So that would make sure that the fair trade is adopted and it is in practice in the industry. So if we talk about the food laws in different countries, US FDA, Federal Food Drug Cosmetic Act, FDCA, basically is a primary law that would be taking care of these food safety and quality of products in US. And similarly, in Canada, they have got food and that is a primary food law in Canada. And then if we look at the further detail, the US Code of Federal Regulation, CFR, Title 21, and Canada's food and drug regulations are example of food regulations that would address food safety and food quality issues. So as I said that food laws and food regulations, there's a little difference. And if we talk about the situation in Pakistan, we have a national body, PSQCA, and then we have provincial food laws as well that they are there in every food. So every province have their own food authorities and they can set up their own standards. So um, if we have to think about the food safety and food safety systems, it needs to implement certain voluntary standards as well as the mandatory standards set by the governments in the country in which these are operating. So food manufacturers or food industries have to follow these systems and they have to implement these systems so that they meet the internal as well as external requirements for making safe and healthy and nutritious food products for the end user.